Hey guys, Spartacus here, and welcome back to another tier list video. I'm finally back from my holiday, which means we're back to work. And yeah, in case you were wondering, Vikings don't do well with sun, because even though I used a ton of sunscreen, I still got sunburn on my nose, and now I have a very big spot where my skin peeled off, which is gonna look great in the video, right? Not so much. Anyways, today we're gonna do another creature tier list, which was requested by Tames, one of the biggest supporters of the channel. So without further ado, let's jump into it. For this list, we're gonna use Tier Maker, which is probably the website that everyone is using for this type of content. And as you can see, we got every creature available on Scorched right here, including the newest edition, the Pyromane. So although this is not my style, I got nothing scripted for this video, so we're gonna do pretty much a live ranking right now. Okay, let's not waste any more time and let's start with the Achatina. The Achatina is definitely one of the useful small creatures in the game, and if I remember correctly, in the Island tier list video, I think I gave it a B rank. But with that being said, I think the Achatina is more worthy of an A rank in Scorched Earth. Why? Because in Scorched Earth, you're missing the Casteroids, which means no beaver dams, and you also miss the frogs, so the Achatina is pretty much the only way you can get natural cementing paste, unless you want to craft it. So yeah, in my opinion, for Scorched Earth, the Achatina I think is deserving of the A tier. Next we have the Ankylosaurus. Of course, this one goes straight to S tier, even though on this map we have other options for collecting crystal, obsidian, and metal or flint. And yeah, I still think it's deserving of the S tier, even though maybe we're gonna push it a little bit back, so closer to the A tier, not so much the top of S tier. Next we have the Aranio, which is garbage, absolute trash, don't tame this one. I mean, why would you even want this thing? It's definitely D tier, just like on the island. Yeah, there's no point in talking about this. Next we have the Archaeopteryx. Now the Archaeopteryx, I think it's better on Scorched Earth than on the island, mainly because you only have land and you know, you can use it to fly and travel a bit cooler with the Archaeopteryx. But the thing is, it's not a shoulder pet. You cannot use it as you would use a shoulder pet, like the Cinemacrops. Yeah, the Cinemacrops is this thing, but just much better. Since this thing is not a shoulder pet, it's pretty much useless. So yeah, D tier, unfortunately, for the Archaeopteryx. Next we have the Argentavis, which is still an S tier dino on Scorched Earth. And he's also above the Ankylosaurus because, as I said, the Ankylosaurus can be replaced in Scorched Earth by a few other tames, but the Argentavis is definitely not that easily replaceable. And even though there are better options for flyers in this map, you're still gonna use this for taming and resource collection, and it can even boss, and if you don't trust me, you know where to find that content. Next we have the Arthropleura. Again, this crap. I think on the island I gave it a C tier just because it's a bit better than everything we have in D tier, and yeah, it probably has some uses in PvP, but I'm basing this tier list on PvE experience, so it's definitely better than what we have in D tier, but it's still trash. So I wouldn't use the Arthropleura like ever. I just wouldn't use it, period. Okay, next we actually have some good dinos now. First, the Carnotaurus. I think I gave the Carnotaurus a B tier on the island, mainly because the Baryonyx exists there and because the map has a lot more water. Scorched Earth is a big freaking desert, so yeah, land creatures are much better here than on the island. And since we're missing both the Allosaurus and the Baryonyx on Scorched Earth, I think the Carnotaurus can actually go into A tier. And that's mainly because of the bleed damage that you get with the Carnotaurus. Because on Scorched Earth, I think it's more useful than it was on the island, even though you don't have the Giganotosaurus. But you get the ability to kill rock golems with them, you get the ability to kill death worms with them thanks to that bleed damage, even Titanosaurs. So yeah, I think it's much better on this map compared to the island. But there is one dino that still undermines the Carnotaurus, and that's our next pick, the Ceratosaurus. The Ceratosaurus, in my opinion, is an S tier dino, being much more mobile compared to the Carnotaurus, even though the official variant is definitely not as strong as the mod variant. But still, it's way faster, it can travel a lot more using the same stamina, and you can even take on the Manticore with these guys, because their heal scales very well in large numbers. So yeah, I think the Cerato is definitely one of the best tames you can have on Scorched Earth. Unfortunately, it cannot jump, but hey, you cannot have everything. Unless you're the Pyromane. Okay, moving on. Next, we have the Coelacanth. Yeah, pointless. Unless, you know, you want to fish with them. I don't think there's any usefulness to these guys. so I'm gonna put them in D tier. Next we have the Daedon, and with this guy I think we found ourselves the first B tier creature. Now the Daedon is a very good creature, no doubt in my mind, but the simple fact that the Manticore is such an easy boss to kill makes the Daedon not so important in this map. In other maps where bosses are much better, yeah, it makes sense to bring a healer like the Daedon, but in this one, yeah, not so much. So I cannot justify putting it above B tier, which is a good tier, you know. It's anything in these 3 tiers is really good, while the C tier is more of a niche tier, and the D tier is absolutely crap. Okay, next we have Death Worms. These guys are definitely not tameable, but they're definitely one of the more important creatures you find in Scorched Earth. You're gonna encounter them a lot if you're going to hunt loot crates in the desert, and you still need their Deathworm horns to tame one of the best creatures on the map that we're gonna encounter later in the video. So I think the Deathworm goes into A tier because yeah, they're pretty important to the Scorched Earth map. Next we have the Doedicarus, and I think I put this into A tier last time on the island, but considering now this is the best dino for stone and for sand, and trust me, you're gonna use a ton of sand, yeah, you're definitely gonna need this one, so I think it's deserving of S tier, you know, top of A tier, bottom of S tier, something like that. Next we have the Direwolf. The Direwolf is a good tame, it's a pretty good early game tame, but I still think the Carnotaurus or other carnivores are much better than it. So I think I'm gonna give the Direwolf a B tier. Now we have a weird one. For some reason, the Deinosuchus can spawn on Scorched Earth. Even though, you know, it's a desert, why is this thing spawning there? But you know, in Ascended we actually have a bit more water on Scorched Earth, and we also have a hidden cave that's access through water, so, you know, maybe it makes sense. The thing with the Deinosuchus is that taming it on Scorched Earth, it sounds like a pain in the ass, because there's a really small chance of them spawning. Yeah, they offer you a lot of firepower, but you just don't need that much firepower for the Manticore. I'm gonna give them a B tier because you don't need them, basically. You just don't need the Deinosuchus, and it's pretty hard to tame on this map because they're so rare. Next, we have the Dung Beetle. Now, the Dung Beetle is actually weird one because I think it's easier to get oil on Scorched Earth than it was on the island, but you still get the added benefit of getting fertilizer from them. So I definitely rate them higher on the island, but I still think they're deserving of the, you know, the bottom of S tier, like the just above A tier. Yeah, I think that's okay because you're still taming them with shit and you get 2 of the best resources in the game from them. So yeah, hold on, the delivery guy is at the door. Okay, we're back. Where were we? Oh yeah, the Equus. Oh, I absolutely love the horse. The thing is, on the island, I gave it a B tier because on the island it's quite hard to find one because they don't spawn that often. But on Scorched Earth, I think they're spawning a lot more, so I'm actually gonna give them an A tier. Mainly because they spawn a lot more and because they have very good weight reductions for clay and for cactus sap. And they can craft clay on the go, which is awesome. Also, come on, who doesn't want to be a cowboy on Scorched Earth? That's the only way that map should be played. Okay, next we have the Fasolasuchus, one of the creatures added in Ascended. I definitely think it's a good creature and it's a unique creature. It's probably the best flint gatherer in the game, though I don't think that's of much importance, honestly. But it's a pretty good PvP dino considering its armor reduction and the Sandstorm ability, which allows them to take on much bigger opponents. So I actually think they're an A tier creature. I think I'm gonna put it above the Achatina and below the Deathworm. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good spot for the Fasolasuchus. I mean, it has some pretty solid uses and can be used as a boss dino, so yeah, I think it's A tier. Next we have the Gallimimus, absolute dog shit. I'm gonna put it in C tier for being the fastest creature on land, but yeah, I would never tame this piece of crap. Next we have the Giant Bee, I think this is. This is another niche creature, and niche creatures go into C tier, but this one is definitely a lot more useful compared to the Arthro and the Gallimimus. So I'm gonna put it at the top of C tier, yeah. Next we have the Hynodon, which is kind of a lesser version of the Direwolf. They're pretty much the same glass cannon type of creature. However, the Hynodon can get armor. And they have a really good ability which lets them heal whenever they kill and eat another creature, similar to how wild creatures do in the game. However, their taming method, even though it's nice, it's a pain in the ass. So I'm gonna put them below the Direwolf, which is an easy Trank and Feed tame. Next, we have the Iguanodon, which I completely forgot it existed on this map when I did my best creature for each resource video on Scorched. So yeah, it's time to make up for that mistake. The Iguanodon goes to the top of A tier. It's definitely one of the best herbivores in the game. It has a lot of uses, so yeah, I think it's deserving of A tier. Even though I just realized I placed the Equus at the bottom of A tier, which is kind of a no-no, to be honest. I honestly think the Equus is better on this map than the Iguanodon, so I'm gonna move the Equus right here at the top of A tier. I think the others can stay like this. Next we have the Jerboa, which of course it goes to S tier. I mean, what other shoulder pet are you even using on Scorched? Although there is one that's better. But the Jerboa is basically the first tame you get on Scorched, and you're basically counting on them all throughout your playthrough. So yeah, definitely the Jerboa is an S tier for this map. Any other map is probably D tier, but this one is S. Next we have the Jugbug, which is useful in the beginning of the game when you're short on water, and especially if you do not spawn nearby a body of water or a well, you're gonna be very happy whenever you see these guys. But past the early game, they're pretty much useless. And the oil Jugbug is completely useless in my opinion, because you get oil pumps, so yeah, oil is very easy to get on Scorched Earth. So I'm gonna give them a top of C tier rating, because there's still some usage for them, especially in the early game where they can be very useful. They can literally make the difference between you living or dying. So yeah. Next we have the Caprusuchus. Yeah, another completely useless tame on this map. I guess I'll take one over the Gallimimus. But especially if you play PvE, their stats are not amazing. If you play PvP, there is some usage for them, definitely. You can pick off other players with them. But in PvE, yeah, there's little usage for them on this map. Plus, they're very annoying to tame, so yeah, no. Next, we have the Kentrosaurus, somehow an even less useful creature. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna put you in D tier. Yeah, we don't even have Gigantosauruses on this map, so yeah, you're completely useless. Next we have the Limentria, which is the first flyer you can get on this map. It means of course it gets some bonus points. I think it's an A tier tame. Probably better than these two, because you can get wyvern eggs with this thing. It also has some other uses like farming them for silk. But yeah, being the first flyer on a map has to give you some extra points, so even though it's not an amazing flyer, it's still pretty good. So yeah, I think A tier is good for them. Next we have the Lystro, which is going to go to bottom of C tier, because you know they have their XP boost, so they're not completely useless. Next we have the Mantis, which goes to the top of S tier. Like, come on guys. The Mantis is probably the most versatile creature in the game. It's basically the Therizino of Scorched Earth, and it can gather even more than the Therizino. So yeah, the ceiling on this thing is insane. The only thing that it lacks is health, I think, and also torpor, which means the Manticore fight is not that easy with them. I definitely would recommend using something else for the Manticore. But a Mantis can basically take care of all your resource needs in this map. So yeah, the jack of all trades, the Mantis, goes straight to the top of S tier. Okay, next we have the Megalania. The Megalania is definitely not one of my favorite tames, especially on Scorched Earth. I don't know, I wanted to put it above the Caprusuchus because of its climbing ability, but then again the Caprusuchus is doing a lot more damage. But I think I value the climbing ability more than the Caprusuchus jump, especially in PvE. So it's gonna go here in C tier. Next we have another cave dino, yay! It's the Megalosaurus, which, yeah, it has amazing stats and during the night is a beast, but still, taming this is a pain in the ass, and considering you only get to play half the time with it, and on Scorched Earth you can get a lot of other events during the night, so that means you're probably gonna get even less playtime with this thing. Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's a C tier at best. Next we have the Megatherium, which honestly, I don't know where to rank it, because on the island you had the Broodmother, but here you get the Manticore, which they can still take down, but they just don't get their buff. They're amazing at taking down death worms, but so are other dinos, and their mobility is not that great. They are, however, really good at gathering cactus sap, so I think that saves their ass and allows them to stay in A tier, but closer to the bottom, not at the top. Next we have the Microraptor, absolute garbage. Yeah, if you're not playing PvP, do not tame this thing. Absolute trash, bottom of D tier. Next we have the Morelltops, which is definitely one of the most important dinos on this map. As a mount, it's not that fast, but it packs quite a punch, so you can fend off raptors or Dilophosaurus pretty easy in the early game, and even later in the game they can take on the average Carno or, I don't know, a pack of direwolves pretty easy. But their big selling point is their water tank ability. So yeah, if you're planning on being a nomad or building a base in the middle of nowhere where you only have wells for water, you're definitely gonna need some Morellatops. I think this one goes probably between the Equus and the Iguanodon. Yeah, I think that's pretty okay. Especially now with the cart, if you have Bob's DLC and you get access to the platform cart, these guys are very good. Next we have the Moschops, which have always been a great resource collector, so I think I'm gonna put them in B tier, yeah. The Moschop is definitely a good versatile resource collector and is probably your best way to gather sap on this map, though that's not that important, so their usage is limited to rare mushrooms and flowers, meat and berries, and polymer. So yeah, I think B tier is a pretty good rank for the Moschops. Next we have the Oasisaur. Oh yeah, the first pay-to-win creature, which is actually not that much of a pay-to-win. They're definitely interesting. I haven't tamed one in PvE actually, but I heard a lot of people are having a hard time in PvP with feeding them. So yeah, it seems that keeping them alive is pretty hard, which kind of balances them out. Now they have some interesting abilities like reviving a dead creature once 24 hours. You also get, pretty similar to Getcha, some resource generation on its back. They're definitely good, and they're now probably the best platform saddle dino. You understand what I'm saying? They're the best when it comes to building a mobile base on them because, you know, they can fly. So I think they are deserving of a B tier because, you know, they're not essential, but they're pretty cool. Next we have the Onyx, absolute dog trash, D tier. The Avis is definitely a good tame, but on Scorched Earth, the top creatures are usually not tamed using the traditional trank and feed meat method, which means the Avis drops a bit in usefulness. I'm gonna still put it at the bottom of B tier because I think its usage is better than all this trash right here. But yeah, the wool is pretty much useless. The mutton, you can still use it to tame some carnivores like the Rex or the Carno, but there are a lot of other creatures that don't use this method. So yeah, bottom of B tier is okay. Next we have the Parasauritherium, which was the OG creature to use as a mobile base in Scorched Earth, but now we've got the Oasisaur, we've got the carts, and we already had the Titanosaur, but that one is a lot harder to tame. Still, they're pretty good when it comes to mobile bases, and they have good stats. Unfortunately, you cannot use them in boss battles, so yeah, I'm gonna put them at B tier, below the Oasisaur. The Parasaur, oh man, the Parasaur. Unfortunately, the Parasaur kind of lost its position as the early game tame because of the Morellatops. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put the Parasaur at top of C tier. Yeah, sorry man, but you're just kind of one-trick pony because all you can do is use that detection of yours. Oh! Wait, that's actually great. The detection is the best way to find a Phoenix on Scorched Earth. We're actually buffing the Parasaur back to B tier. I think I'm gonna put it next to the Moschops, mainly because you can use them to find a Phoenix. That's their whole purpose. Yeah, you can use them for berries and other shit, but that's a big boost for the Parasaur. Next we have the Pegomastax, absolute dog trash, back to D tier. And speaking of which, the Phoenix. The Phoenix is one of the rarest creatures in the game. It's kind of the trophy creature of Scorched Earth. You definitely haven't got the full Scorched Earth experience unless you tame a Phoenix. Now for usage, they're pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. They're a working furnace and campfire. They can get their metal, crystal and obsidian very good actually. They can shit silica pearls and black pearls. So yeah, they are quite useful, and they also got an aesthetic upgrade in Ascended, which allows them to have other colors, so they're pretty decent now. Unfortunately, the taming method is still very hard. You're still finding them only during heat waves. So yeah, taming them is not easy, but I think the addition of another creature makes taming them a lot easier. For the Phoenix, I think I'm gonna go with A tier, and I'm actually gonna put it above the Phaseolasuchus. It can also take down deathworms really well, so yeah, one of the best flyers on Scorched Earth, definitely. Next we have the Procoptodon, which is an amazing mount for Scorched Earth. This is probably the perfect land travel mount for this map, this one, and there's another one later on, but the Procoptodon with its jump can get to any heights of the map, and having no fall damage is a big plus for this map. Also, they're pretty good at collecting rare flowers and mushrooms. I think I'm gonna put it below the Equus, because the Equus still has that Mortar Pestle saddle, but it's really close between them. Yeah, it's really close. This could definitely be top of A tier. Next we have the Scorpion, the Pulmonoscorpius, which it's still trash, but it's better than those in D tier. You can actually knock out things with this thing, so I'm gonna put it at bottom of C tier. The Purlovia, on the other hand, is a complete garbage dino, which unless it gets a saddle and allows me to ride it, I'm never gonna put it above D tier. And we got to the Pyromane, or how I like to call it, the totally balanced, completely not overpowered and pay-to-win creature of Ark. This is unsurprisingly top of S tier. I mean, come on. They give you protection from both heat and cold, which is extremely important for this map. They give you protection from lava, which allows you to explore the Wyvern Trench without problems. And they're obviously really good at fighting. You can use them to take out the Manticore, and they're the best caving creature on this map because they can basically pass any choke point, because they can be your mount as well as your shoulder pad, which is amazing honestly. So yeah, top of S tier, no questions asked. This is the best map for the Pyromane, even though they're harder to tame here compared to the center. But they're definitely S tier in my opinion for PvE here. And don't even get me started on PvP, because spoiler alert, they're OP as hell. Okay, next we have the Raptor. Everyone knows the Raptor is a decent early game mount. It's your first meat gatherer, so yeah, I think B tier below the Direwolf, and I think above the Hynodon because you can still ride the Raptor. I think that one makes sense, yeah. Next we have the big boy, the Rex. I'm still gonna put the Rex at the top of A tier, even though here you only have one boss fight and there are no Gigas to take out, but still, they're your top meat gatherer, they're your apex predator of the map, so yeah, A tier looks like a good place for them. Next we have the Rock Golem. Wow, this is a hard one actually, because on PvP, these things would be S tier definitely. However, on PvE, I never actually missed them, to be honest. At no point in my PvE playthrough, I was like, damn, I really need a Rock Golem, because you cannot bring them into the boss fight and they're quite hard to tame. Actually, that should have been a plus for the Paraceratherium, because those are the ones that you should use when taming the Rock Golem. I still think they're an A tier creature because they can still collect a lot of shit, but they're just not a must-have. They're really good, but they're not essential. They're similar to how the Phoenix works. They're pretty much a trophy tame in PvE. On PvP, again, they're definitely S tier. Next, we have the Sabertooth. The Sabertooth is probably a better version of the Direwolf on this map, honestly, mainly because they have that fall damage reduction, which is really important on Scorched Earth because you're gonna take a lot of full damage probably. So yeah, I think the Sabertooth is above the Direwolf, especially since you can get saddles with them. Next we have the Tapiara, which is probably the flyer you should use when trying to get a Wyvern Egg. They're still pretty hard to find on Scorched Earth, but I still think they're an A tier creature. I don't know if they are above or below the Lymantria. I think because of their ceiling, they should be above the Lymantria, but again, they're pretty hard to find, so there is a chance that you already have a Wyvern before you find a good Tapiara to tame. But still, they're very fast and they're the best when it comes to stealing your first Wyvern Egg, so A tier. Next, we have the Terrorbird. Oh, there's another one that I hate. As much as I hate the Terrorbird, I have to admit that Scorched Earth is a better map for the Terrorbird compared to the island. I don't remember what rating I gave the Terrorbird on the island, but I think it was C tier, probably on the lower end of C tier. However, here, they are actually comparable to the Raptor, because you get that glide ability that you can use to traverse the map, and they're pretty fast. I actually have no clue where to put these guys. It's either top of C tier or bottom of B tier, though I think they're a bit better than the Raptors, although they have worse stats if I remember correctly. Yeah, I really don't know. I think I'll have to go with top of C tier, something like this. Yeah, probably right here. Next, we have the Thorny Dragon, which is the Casteroid version of Scorched Earth. Now, they're really good at wood gathering. They're actually better than the Casteroid, and they still retain that smithy saddle. However, the Casteroid is a better tame overall, because they are fast swimmers and they can also collect berries. These things are carnivores. And if we're being honest, you probably don't need as much wood on Scorched Earth as you did on the island. They're still a decent tame, so I think B tier is where I will put the Thorny Dragon. Probably, yeah, here below the Deinosuchus. Next, we have the Thylacoleo, one of the best tames on the map, which prior to Ascended was actually the best day-to-day mount you could have on this map. The introduction of Pyromane kind of replaced them. They're still a very good cave creature and climber, and they have the bleed damage to kill Titanosaurs and Deathworms, so they're not completely replaced. However, they will drop from S tier to A tier. I think I'm gonna put them above the Phaseolasuchus. Then we have the Titanoboa, which is notoriously hated by me, absolute garbage trash, bottom of D tier. The Titanomira on the island, it was one of the main sources of chitin. However, with the addition of the mantis and the deathworm, they're not as important as they were on the island, so bottom of C tier. Next, we have the Titanosaur, which is another weird one to rank in a PvE focused tier list. This is another platform saddle dino, and I think on Scorched Earth there are more Titanosaurs than they were on the island. I think Scorched Earth has 3 at the same time, so it's definitely easier to find compared to the island, but I think the Oasisaur is still better when it comes to building on a platform, so I'm gonna put it between the Oasisaur and the Paraceratherium. They're still the strongest creature you can tame on this map, so I cannot argue anywhere lower than B tier. Next, we have the Troodon, which is notoriously another creature that I absolutely hate, and you should never tame this thing in PvE, and even in PvP, I don't think it's worth it. Just for guarding your base, at least now they can have wild babies, so you can use those. But when it comes to taming, absolute bottom of D tier, no questions asked. Next, we have the Vulture, which is the other shoulder pad from the original Scorched Earth. However, this one is nowhere near as useful as the Jerboa or the Pyromane. So, I think top of C tier is the best I can give them. Their selling point is that they can work as a fridge for spoiled meat, so yeah, pretty much useless. And finally, we got to the poster boy of Scorched Earth, the Wyvern. Now this one is actually pretty hard to rank, because when I started the video, I thought that the Wyvern will definitely be the top S tier dino. However, then I remembered that the Pyromane is now on Scorched Earth, so is that one higher or is the Wyvern still the best? It was pretty hard to decide, but I still think the Wyvern takes the crown on Scorched Earth. Even though the Pyromane is incredibly versatile and the best shoulder pad on the map, but I still think the ability to fly and its firepower give the Wyvern the crown on Scorched Earth. And I'm also gonna rank all 3 variants at the top because in PvE they're pretty much interchangeable. The story is different in PvP. There you might say that maybe the Lightning Wyvern is the best because it ignores armor, or maybe you like the Poison Wyvern because of its long range, but in PvE they're pretty much the same. So yeah, the Wyvern is the best on Scorched Earth. And we're left with the Eutyrannus, which is definitely an S tier creature, probably above the Ceratosaurus. It's still the best dino you can use when leading your army into battle, but it's worth to note here that you can use Wyvern eggs to make exceptional kibble, which kind of reduces the Eutyrannus' usefulness a bit, but I still think it's deserving of an S tier. So here you go guys, that's my list for Scorched Earth. Let me see if I can fit all of them on the screen. Okay, great. So yeah guys, this is my tier list. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and share it with your friends, and let me know down in the comments if you agree with my picks or not, and tell me what you would change in this tier list. A special thanks to Curly Tones for supporting the channel, and a big thank you to everyone watching my content. Until next time, Spartacus out!